Hey, so I'm on a little bit of a different schedule this week. The video is going up on Tuesday, the blog will follow on Thursday. This should hopefully fit my schedule a little bit better. I feel like for the last few months I've been recording the videos in advance and saying, oh, like I mentioned in Monday's blog, blah blah blah, and then I have to make a mental note to myself to actually write the thing that I said I had written about. So now the video and the blog are being recorded and written in the same order that they'll go up on the website. So hopefully that'll make a little bit more sense. In this week's video, I'm just going to cover sort of everything that I've done this week, even where it overlaps a little bit between things I've talked about on Twitter and probably what I'll be writing about in the blog. But yeah, I'll just sort of cover everything at a high level and then probably go into a little bit more of a technical deep dive for one of these things in particular for the blog. So let's take a look at the game. Last week I was showing off challenge rooms in the video. These are rooms where the doors lock behind you and you have to kill all the enemies before you can escape and before a treasure chest will drop. So the one element that I didn't have last time was the treasure chest. I've added that since then, so as you'll see here, I go into this room, the door locks behind me, a couple guys appear, kill them both, and if I come over here, a treasure chest has appeared. That would have been a lot cooler if you had actually seen it appear. You know, I'm gonna try this again, and we'll see if I get a better take this time. That's, I guess, one of the downsides of random generation is that I can't guarantee it's going to present the way I hope. Alright, so let's try this again. I'll go in here, I'll get the same guys this time, kill them. Yeah, there we go, treasure chest appeared right above us. So now we can see that works, and the door unlocks. So with that, I've sort of closed the loop on how challenge rooms work. They work essentially exactly the same as they did in Gunmetal Arcadia 0, but now they are entirely procedurally generated. So there's still going to be a lot of work to do as far as figuring out all the content for those sorts of things, figuring out all the different types of enemies that can appear, everything that I would want in a treasure chest in those cases, because it's probably not just going to be money in this game. I'd imagine you'll probably find items and weapons inside treasure chests too. So yeah, there's still work to be done there, but I at least have that one sort of facet of it working correctly. So something else that I've done here that you may not have noticed just by looking at this, but the tiles for the background, the blue brick, and the walls and floor, the brown stone, these are all procedurally generated as well now. The bricks overlay each other in the correct pattern. They have the correct edges on the walls. The shadows on the background around the walls here, those are all procedurally generated. So I'm trying to move in a direction where I can sort of build the levels, build the prefabs as gray boxes and let all of the art and decorations be procedurally generated. So the way that looks in the editor now is this sort of mess. I need to clean up the way this looks in the editor because it's kind of messy right now. But essentially, I can flag tiles as being like just a generic background tile or being just a generic solid wall, and the game understands how to choose the correct tiles for that position based on where it is and what it's adjacent to. So if a tile is directly next to, if a background tile is directly next to a wall or a ceiling, it needs some shadowing. If one of these wall tiles is next to background, it needs an edge placed there. So the way this is working right now is very, very much hard-coded for this particular tile set, where I have these sorts of ideas of how bricks and things are sort of prefabbed. And then of course I can just place tiles directly. So like if I come up to one of these rooms, I have this background where I have the little sconce for the torch to appear. I have ladders and things in there, so I can place tiles by hand exactly as I always have. And then, you know, hopefully the procedurally generated backdrops will, you know, align nicely with those. But yeah, this is very much hard-coded right now for this particular tile set. One of the things I'm going to be looking at in the future is figuring out how to develop rules so that when I have other tile sets that maybe aren't, you know, these sorts of bricks that need to overlay each other in these certain patterns, once I have other types of tile sets, I can develop rules that, you know, behave correctly for those. I don't yet know whether, you know, I'm going to be reusing all of the tile sets from zero, whether I'm going to be developing any new ones. Some of that stuff is still sort of so far away, I haven't really had time to think about it yet, but definitely I know the rules I've developed for this are not going to handle every single case I could come up with. But, you know, it looks pretty good here. The shadows around walls and ladders and stuff just, you know, immediately looks like the sort of stuff that I would paint by hand, so that's really cool. And, you know, not having to think about how the edges of prefabs are going to line up, that's a big thing here, because, you know, I had cases in the past, I'm sure this was visible in some of my older videos, where, you know, you could tell where one prefab ended and the next one began, because maybe there would be a shadow that was just cut off there, because, you know, how does this one prefab know what it's next to? Well, now that it's all procedurally generated, it doesn't need to know that. You know, that can all be done sort of as a post-process. So that's a big win, and hopefully as I continue developing those rule sets for other tile sets, hopefully we can see some cool stuff starting to happen there. I guess the last thing that I've worked on this week, I already showed this a little bit in a video that went up late last week, but I've been working on fixing up some different types of input bugs when dealing with non-standard controllers. So for the most part, if you're using like an Xbox 360 controller or, you know, a DualShock 4, you know, one of the Logitech gamepads that tend to be very commonplace, most of these sorts of devices just work out of the box in my engine. But there's always, you know, that fear of, well, you know, some players are going to have devices that I don't own, and I haven't had an opportunity to test and make sure they function correctly. And I wanted a way to handle those cases and make them, you know, feel like they work correctly. So I ended up doing this this sort of, let's see here, this gamepad button remapper. So basically what this is it's just a little wizard built into the game where it asks you to press the button on your own device, and here I'm using a DualShock 2 running through an adapter plugged into my PC. So the input that this device is sending to my engine is not necessarily the same sort of input that I would expect from something like a Logitech device that follows certain conventions. But what I can do is I just, you know, ask the player to press certain buttons in a certain order, and the game understands like, oh, I was looking for this, but I got this thing instead, so now I know how to make that connection. So, you know, when the game says, you know, press X or press circle or square or whatever, you can actually press the button that should be correct and it will actually respond correctly. I think I explained this better in my previous video, so I'll link that one below if you if you want to check that out. But yeah, it's basically, it's sort of a it's a load off my mind to know that I don't have to worry about, you know, not handling every one of thousands of different devices that might be out there. I guess that's about all I've done this week. I think probably for the blog on Thursday, I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive into the procedural background generation and procedural tile generation, explain, you know, the rules for how this particular tile set works, and some thoughts on how things might work in the future, or how I'm going to blend procedural stuff with handcrafted stuff, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's for the first time since I guess since wrapping up Gunmetal Arcadia 0, I feel like I'm kind of back into a normal rhythm of development. It took longer than I expected to sort of cool down from the crunch of finishing 0, and then going directly from that into console development I couldn't really talk about, and doing some demos and events. it's been sort of a weird couple of months, but you know, I'm finally back in a normal rhythm of like doing development work throughout the week and then doing the video and blog sort of over the weekend. So yeah, hopefully now that I'm back in that pace, things will be a little bit smoother from here on out. As always, thanks for watching. This video series is supported through Patreon. I wanted to give a shout out to Patreon supporters Jace, Benjamin, and Opa and Nana for their contributions. You can find the links to my Patreon campaign below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.